Hello there. I entitled this talk Survive, Drive, Win, which is the title of the book I've just written with a guy from the Times newspaper. Lessons from Formula One, how to win. What I'm going to talk you through a little bit is firstly a little bit about Formula One. I don't know how much each of you know about it, but I think that's kind of useful background. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how a Formula One team works and the amounts of money involved. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the team that I used to run, which went through a whole bunch of different iterations. It started owned by a tobacco company, and then by Honda Motor Company, and then myself and another guy called Ross Brawn ended up owning the team, and then we sold it to Mercedes. It's recently become the most successful team in Formula One history. So the story really is of a team that was, I have to say, pretty mediocre at one stage, if not worse than that, and how it got to really incredible success. And I think the really interesting part, which hopefully there's some takeaways for each of you, is what did we learn out of that? And in fact, I did see that Google had done a survey recently, I think, of lots of businesses about what made them successful. And I've been sort of pitching this story probably for about the last decade, but I think that if you've seen the work that you've done and what I'm going to talk about, there is a huge amount of crossover, which when I actually read that, I was kind of gratified that I've been peddling some of the right messages. So backgrounds. This is a slide that my mother insists I make. She's one of the people in the world who hates sport. So whatever I achieved in sport, she completely discards. So she says, tell him you had a proper job once. So this is for Mum. Mum, I did have a proper job once. So I worked for Ford Motor Company for about 25 years. In a lot of different activities. I was in sales, I was in marketing, I ran a big manufacturing plant. I was, for my sins, director of customer service. I ran Aston Martin for a few years. So lots and lots of different things. And then had my midlife crisis at about 40 years old and decided that I wanted to do something different and went to run a what might be called an outsourced engineering company, a much smaller company that provided engineering services to the car industry, which was involved in off-road rallying. Did a lot of work for the Subaru rally team. For reasons it's too lengthy to go into, we ended up managing a not very successful Formula One team in around late 2001, early 2002. And then I was in Formula One for about the next 12 or 13 years with the same team, but through various iterations and various ownerships. So, and now, just to sort of finish off, I invest in lots of small companies, some of which you may be familiar with. I'm chairman of an esports team called Fnatic, which is probably the biggest European team of about a dozen teams of games players who have done incredibly well around the world in games like League of Legends and the like. So I'm sure some of you will be familiar with that. So what happens when this young lad with this blue chip corporate background goes to a sport like Formula One? Well, for those of you who are not familiar, this is the, I don't know how to say this, the archangel maybe, but the person who really put Formula One on the map. I mean, Formula One, prior to the advent of Bernie Ecclestone, was something that a bunch of mainly English sort of eccentrics almost got involved with, very, very amateur. And Bernie is the man who really took it from very little into one of the biggest sports in the world. And even today, although it's had a few more difficulties and leveled out due to competition with other sports, Formula One is invariably up there in the top three nationally. So if you go to the Nordic countries, you might get skiing at the top or tennis in others, but Formula One is invariably there. So this is the man that did it. I put the title actually of another book which was written in the 1970s called Welcome to the Piranha Club, because for someone who works for a big company, and I'm the biggest admirer of what big corporations can do, but when you go into something like this, you learn a completely different set of skills. At Ford, I was probably at the entrepreneurial end of the spectrum in terms of the management there at that time. You go to something like Formula One and you find you're a beginner at that. These people take huge decisions, usually involving their own money, and you learn a lot from working with people like Bernie. And of course, there's another side. He's had various difficulties, if you like, with the authorities over the years, but it almost comes with the territory that people who are making those sort of decisions and working very quickly, sometimes trip over from time to time. But I think if you can have the balance of both sets of skills to some extent or another, then it equips you for a great career. So just a little bit about what does a Formula One team look like? Well, I'm talking here about the big teams, and really part of the problem that Formula One has got is that there are three teams which have completely dominated for the last 5 or so years. So that's Mercedes principally, that's Ferrari, and the team owned by Red Bull, or the two teams owned by Red Bull. But these teams are big businesses. The operating budget would be about $500 million per annum, and that's your annual operating budget. Before you get that far, you've got to invest in significant facilities. So, at Mercedes and some of the other big teams, you'll find state-of-the-art aerodynamic wind tunnels, which probably cost about 50 million of any currency, sterling or dollars, to build in the first place. 2 or 3 year program. So, before you get to the state where you can actually spend that much money, why is it so expensive? Well, it's so expensive because you need a lot of people. You need a lot of people because to be competitive, you have to design a new car every year. Formula One is really the only motorsport where, although you're allowed to buy certain systems, like, for example, the brake system, which are pretty much standard across the cars, you have to have the intellectual property to your car. You can't go and buy one off the shelf. And almost every other motorsport formula around the world, you do have the ability to buy either the complete thing and then go racing, or at least the major parts of it. So maybe a couple of thousand people, maybe somewhere like Mercedes up to 1,200 people on the chassis, and maybe another 800 people or so on the engine side. And they're very early technology adopters. I mean, you've got to keep improving. So they're companies that in all areas, whether it be the software, whether it be energy recovery systems, whether it be the body structures, they are absolutely top of their game. And and I would argue in lots of areas, possibly 20 or 25 years ahead of things like aerospace, certainly in the use of things like composite materials. So, as I said, very rapid development. A Formula One car has got about the same number of parts as a road car. So maybe 4,000 designed parts, and you've got to design those every year in a very short window. So you might start in, say July with the gearbox, which is very complicated, and it's also sets up the aerodynamics at the back of the car. So that's one of the first things maybe you think about. And you've got to have the thing on wheels, ready to go in January, February time, ready to go testing, and then you start racing in March, and you race through to beginning of November, by which time you started again. So you've got to design a huge number of parts, and that's a cycle that a Formula One team might do in 6 months, whereas a regular car company might take 3 to 5 years to do the same job. Now you might think, well, they're only making 3 or 4 cars a year, so they can do that, but it is done in exactly the same way. So if you went to Mercedes or McLaren or a lot of the bigger top Formula One teams, they'd be using CATIA, the IBM Dassault software, which you'd find at any big engineering business. The Mercedes teams runs completely on SAP, which you might associate with a very large company that's making a lot of products, but it controls the material flow system, and a lot of the big teams use just regular facilities, and that goes through the whole piece. I know some of you here may be lawyers or finance or from other functions. I guarantee you that if you went into one of the bigger Formula One teams, behind the scenes, you will recognise exactly what goes on. I mean, the end results, might be very glamorous, and you go to Monaco and all the nice things that you go to, but underneath that, it's fundamentally a very well-run, very strong engineering business, and you need a significant amount of performance improvement every year. If you don't get sort of 12 or 15% performance improvement, taking aside from any change in the rules, you will go backwards. So it is absolutely inevitable, absolutely just continuous pressure. And if you look at things like aerodynamics, you say, well, how can you continue to evolve the aerodynamics of a car? But even with no regulation change, so everything exactly the same in terms of the rules you've got to meet. If you look at a graph of aerodynamic improvement, literally it's the relationship of the hours spent in the wind tunnel to the amount of improvement is almost linear. So the inventiveness of the engineers is almost continuous, and you've just got to keep going. And that's not just between seasons, but you have to keep improving the car during the season as well. So I thought I'd tell you a tiny bit about the team that I was involved with, which is now Mercedes. Before Mercedes and before Ross and I owned the team, we were owned by the Honda Motor Company, great engineering company, and we were extremely well prepared, we thought, for the 2009 season. I just managed to get this guy, Ross Brawn, involved. I mean, in Formula One, really over the last couple of decades, there have been two people on the engineering side who have been, the most successful people. A guy called Adrian Newey, who has worked for the Red Bull team for a long, long time, and Ross, who worked with Michael Schumacher at Ferrari for a long period of time. Incredibly agile and successful automotive engineers and good engineering managers, as well as being as great engineers. And 2008, when Ross started with us, we thought 2009, maybe we could come in the top three of the championship. I mean, that was our aspiration. As is usual, I think Napoleon may have originally said this, or he probably didn't say it like I've got here. Actually, he probably said it in French and in a different, more elegant way. But the literal translation is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And the financial crisis came along. We were very well prepared, and Honda decided to pull out. And I think with good reason in many ways. I mean, as you'll remember, when Lehman Brothers went down, the world went to hell in a handbasket. Car dealers they refused to take cars. The Swindon plant, which was the main UK facility of Honda, was originally intended to be shut down for a few weeks. I think in the end it was shut down for about 6 months. And Honda decided, they needed to stick to their knitting and worry about their main business, and they decided Christmas of 2008 to pull out. And we looked for someone to buy the team. Now, as you can imagine, and as you will read in the book if you care to do so, the only people who wanted to buy a Formula One team at the end of 2008 were certainly people you would not wish to deal with. I can guarantee that. And the book talks about, rather amusingly, some of the people that we briefly got involved with. And I think Honda were very gracious and very honourable, because what they didn't want was to hand the team to someone who they didn't know, and the thing would reflect very badly on them if it went poorly. And they decided probably that the best of a bunch of worst alternatives was to give the team to Ross and myself. The good news was that we paid £1 for it. The bad news was that we took on all the liabilities. So we had 719 to be exact employees. We had a salary bill of about $2 million a month. At this point, I have to say, Mrs. Fry and Mrs. Brawn had a sense of humour failure. they were very correct in observing that this probably wasn't going to work out very well, and that possibly we would end up sleeping in a tent or a caravan for the rest of our lives. Because this is not a place for the faint-hearted. We took on all the liabilities, and off we went. Maybe you'll ask afterwards why on earth we did that, and I probably still can't explain it, but off we went. And we had the first challenge in that Honda said, if we're out, we're out. So, we had a car designed for a Honda engine. Formula One engine cars are bespoke. So, if you took your Ford outside or in your garage at home, or and tried to put a BMW engine in it, it probably wouldn't fit very well because they're designed to kind of go together. We had the same problem, but exacerbated, probably several 100%. These things are, very, very specific. So very nicely, Ferrari and Mercedes-Benz offered to sell us an engine. So one of my first tasks as CEO was to write a check for 8 million euros, because they rightly said, you've got two private individuals, we don't know if you're going to be around, so you'll have to pay for the season up front. So that was kind of a moment of truth. So we paid our engine bill, and we tried to get a Mercedes engine into a car designed for a Honda, which was a bit tricky. Now, this is not going to sound very much, probably, but we ended up with a powertrain, an engine gearbox, which was about half an inch higher than that it should have been, which in Formula One terms, central gravity and all that was, we were not expecting to do very well. We thought instead of third, maybe if we could be midfield, and the chance of us, not going bust by the end of the year was pretty high. So we bunged our lovely Mercedes engine into our Honda car, and hey presto, we were fastest, which was remarkable. Why were we fastest? For two reasons principally. I mean, we'd done a lot of things right, but the reason we were fastest was for two principal reasons. One is that the Mercedes engine was and is now probably the best. I think just maybe now Ferrari may be slightly ahead, but that's probably the first time in the last decade where the Mercedes engine has not been the engine to have. So the Honda engine wasn't great. That's improved a hell of a lot in recent years as well. But at that time, we went from a relatively poor Formula One engine to the best Formula One engine. We'd also discovered something, an innovation with the aerodynamics at the back of the car. I'll talk about it briefly later, but something called a double diffuser, which two other teams actually also thought of, but our execution was a hell of a lot better. So we were fastest in testing. Now, in those days, you didn't have to test a car which was in accordance with the rules. And for those of you who, are on engineering bias or remember your physics or maths from school, the easiest way to make something go fast is just take a lot of weight out of it. So with a Formula One car, because they're so light in the first place, in those days, about 600 kilos, if you can take a bit of weight out, and everyone assumed that we were testing the car underweight, and we were kind of showboating because, as you'll observe from the pictures, we didn't have anything in the way of sponsorship. So a good way of attracting sponsors is to go very quickly, and everyone thinks, that's great. So everyone assumed that we were showboating, as it were. In fact, we were doing the opposite. We were weighing the thing down as much as we could to go as slow as we could, and we were still more than a second faster than anyone else. I mean, it was, in Formula One terms, a second is, you die for a second. I mean, it's a couple of tenths would be a brilliant advantage. You can do the maths. A race is a 90-second lap. A race might be 60 or 70 laps. If you're a second a lap faster than anyone else, then at the end of the race, assuming you keep going, you're going to be a country mile in the lead. So we had a huge advantage. We started to attract a little bit of sponsorship. Richard Branson, who knows a good thing when he sees it, and realised that we were going to be pretty good at this. And they've been people have been trying to get Virgin into Formula One for about 10 years unsuccessfully. Richard came along, and this is a shot from the the Melbourne Grand Prix, which was the first Grand Prix where we announced Virgin sponsorship. Certainly at that time, probably even now, Richard attracted more publicity, so he paid actually a relatively small amount of money for the sponsorship in the scheme of things, but the amount of global coverage he gave us was a huge benefit to us. So we started to raise a bit of money, and hey presto, Melbourne, we were first and second, and then we went to the next race and we won that one, and then went to the third race in Bahrain, we won that one. By this stage, good old Richard had become a permanent fixture. He was around more than the mechanics. I mean, in his mind, we were the Virgin team, which. But it was great. We had a great time, and we won that race. And by the end of the season, as Chris kindly said at the start, we won the World Championship. Not only the Drivers' Championship, but also the Constructors' Championship. We won 8 races. We were first and second in 4 of them, and it was all great. Hurrah! Then it got serious. Formula One is not a place for 2 private individuals, frankly, and lightning rarely strikes twice in the same place. So we took a big investment from Mercedes-Benz, who bought the majority of the team. At this stage, things got kind of a bit more serious. The shot there is our 2 new drivers, Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello, who had been very successful with us the previous year in 2009, 2010. For various reasons, we had a complete change in driver lineup, with the great Michael Schumacher came out of retirement. Nico Rosberg, who subsequently also became a world champion, joined us. The other people in the picture, the guy with the fancy moustache is Dieter Zetscher, who's the long-time, very successful chief executive of Mercedes-Benz. So, it suddenly got serious. We went from a Japanese team to a privately owned sort of English-y team to, owned by Mercedes-Benz. At that time, I think 12th best known brand in the world. So, things changed pretty quickly, which gave us a lot of challenges with, internally with the culture of the team. But it was a really, a great start to a new relationship. And it took us a bit of time to get our act together. I mean, sadly, to stay alive in 2009, we had to let go a huge number of the staff. So we let go, several hundred people, which meant that whilst we could do very well in 2009, we had no investment in the future whatsoever. So it got a bit tough for a few years, and sadly, we never won with Michael, which was, I'd say, a huge disappointment. But the team have been champions, not only constructors but also drivers' champions, with principally Lewis Hamilton 7 times in the last 10 years. So, this is a massively successful team, and onto the sort of the meat of this, where hopefully you'll get some value, is what it takes. So how does this team continue to win year after year? I'd say the first thing is they've got the best people. And I think I could probably stop talking to you here and just talk about this one subject for the next hour. But unless you have the Lewis Hamiltons or the Valentino Rossis, if you're in motorcycle racing, unless you have the best chief engineer, the best body engineers, the best right through the organisation, attracting and retaining the best people and actually getting them to work together and do the best job is by far and away the most important thing. Why does Lewis Hamilton earn the mega big bucks? And the reason is that he can take a car which possibly isn't quite a winning car, and through sheer skill and determination and great teamwork and all the other attributes that he brings to bear, he'll get it to a winning level. And the drivers are not just there to drive the car. I mean, they are really the team leaders. Now, why was Michael Schumacher, many times, 7 times world champion, I would argue is because he was the best team player. He motivated the whole team by demonstrating incredible hard work and incredible dedication, and that just rubs off on the whole organisation. And someone like Lewis does the same thing. I mean, when you watch a Grand Prix, if you watch Grand Prix, you're on the slowing down lap. If he's won, invariably Lewis will come on the radio and say, thanks to everyone involved, thanks to the people back at Brackley in the factory, and that's not a PR stunt. I mean, he realises that the person who is working away diligently in the gearbox shop is just as important to his success as he is behind the wheel, and actually motivating all those people and thanking them and being that great team player is the most important thing. So, number one, will you ever have the 11 best players in a football team all together? Probably not. But you can aspire to, have you got the best goalkeeper, have you got the best centre forward, etc., and do your best to get that sort of team of people. I would say number two to me is along same theme of best people is diversity being such a huge advantage. This shot, which is a couple of years old now, these young people here are some of the best and brightest young engineers from Petronas, which is the Malaysian state oil company. It's the biggest sponsor of the Mercedes team. And what Petronas have done for many years is send to the Formula One team some of their brightest, youngest petrochemical engineers who are expected to provide performance to the team. As the oil and lubricant supplier, they will be expected to probably provide 5 performance upgrades a year. So lower friction, better performance of the fuels and oils. And most of the audiences, sadly, that I speak to are principally, white middle-aged male, and I point out to them that that's not the world anymore. As you'll observe, you can see for yourself that this is a much broader base. And in my experience, having people with different backgrounds successfully working together is hugely powerful. If you go to Mercedes, you'll find a design office full of people from all around the world, and I can see from your audience here that Google would subscribe to the same idea. You just need the best people wherever they're from, and they're from every corner of the world. If you've got the best people, you need to give them the best tools. There is no point in hiring the best surgeon in the world and then giving them a knife and fork and say, please do great operations. And the thing that especially Honda brought to the now Mercedes team was just a huge investment in facilities. This shot is from the inside of wind tunnel. Wind tunnels run at real speed, so this blasts air over the car at 180 plus miles an hour. Certainly at that time, structurally, it was the best wind tunnel in Formula One, and I know it's been kept up to date with the best analytical software. So investing in the right tools. I've been to lots of companies over the years who say, our people are cleverer than anyone else's. So they can come up with smarter ideas, so we don't need to invest. I think you've got to do both. You've got to invest very heavily in the right tools, and you've got to have the best people, because the best people deserve the best tools. May seem obvious, clear objectives and accountability. Very, very focused on what are you trying to achieve. Sometimes in my corporate career, I would sit there and even for a big company like Ford in those days, sometimes we would have 20 or 30 corporate objectives, and even with large numbers of people, more than Google has got at that time, we would struggle with lots and lots of different initiatives. And I think keeping it very focused with and making clear to every single person what they're responsible for delivering. I guarantee you that if you have a son or daughter who went for an internship at Mercedes, just for a summer holiday job, they would get a proper job, and they would be required to deliver, whatever they were being employed to deliver. It would not be, learn a little bit about this generally or shadow someone. It would be, you are responsible. This is what you've got to deliver. And then I think the job of management, and I saw this on the Google survey, where I think it said that sort of management not interfering too much and not getting into the detail was very important. So I picked a slide here of the late Niki Lauda, who was chairman of the Mercedes team, great Formula One world champion, but a great person to have as a chairman. You know, great at making very, very crunchy decisions. You know, when I pitched to Niki when he arrived as my chairman that we've been trying to get Lewis on board, you know, his response was, go hire him and we'll ask for forgiveness later. I mean, and it's always difficult when you're hiring someone who's probably going to be paid more than the chairman of the company that owns, you know, Mercedes in this particular case. But, you know, he was just, you know, very black and white and, you know, being supportive and being around. You know, I'm a great supporter of so-called management by walking around. If you're open and you're accessible, you know, if you've hired the best people and you've given them the best tools to do the job, then why look over their shoulder or keep asking them, you know, what they're up to or, you know, where they are on a project or what have you, but be around to answer questions, be around to make decisions where required. So I think to me, you know, managing a team of very talented individuals is a very particular exercise where all you're going to do is piss people off if you start, you know, diving into the detail. Great teamwork goes without saying. You know, I mentioned earlier about engaging every single individual, and with a big team of you know, hundreds of people, just making clear to people what they're supposed to achieve and making them each of them feel part of it. To break this up just briefly, I guess the epitome of great teamwork is the pit stop that Formula One teams do. They're capable of changing all four wheels and tyres, you know, in, you know, certainly less than 3 seconds, closer to 2 seconds. But the secret of this is doing it in a repeatable fashion. You know, doing it once very, very quickly in 2 seconds is great, but if you screw up the next time and lose 12 seconds, it's kind of not such a great outcome. I can tell you, having a Formula One car coming down a pit lane at you at 100 kilometers an hour, when the guy's been on the track doing 180 miles an hour and he's got eyes as big as this, is a scary experience. So, now, if you're going to ask people to do that, I mean, I'm using the pit stop just as an example, but if you're going to ask people to push to the limit all the time when they're engineering, when they're driving, you've got to expect things to go wrong. And I think things that Formula One teams are really good at is developing an environment of what I would call no blame. You know, I think you've all had this experience that you're trying as hard as you can, something goes wrong, and then somehow you get criticised for doing that. And I think you've got to accept, especially in a high-performing environment, that you know, mistakes, accidents happen. If you say to a Formula One driver, don't crash, that's really easy. I mean, they're going to brake, you know, 5 meters earlier, they're going to accelerate 5 meters later, you know, they're not going to crash, but they're not going to win anything either. So, you know, you don't want them to crash the whole time, clearly, but you've got to expect that from time to time, you know, shit happens. So, you know, be prepared for that. And I think that the things that top teams are very good at is preparing for something to go wrong, putting in place an action plan for when it goes wrong, and actually, you know, reacting appropriately with the individuals involved. And, you know, you make a mistake, you get fired, everyone in the room says, oh shit, I won't do that again because, you know, I'm not going to try very hard because he got fired, so I'm going to get fired. So, you know, it's very, very important to react in the appropriate way. And the appropriate way is actually to help the person as much as possible and the team as much as possible not to make the same mistake again. Now, if the same mistake keeps being made, clearly you have got to react. But, you know, obviously the first port of call is as much training and as much support and as much help as you can possibly get. Communication, incredibly important in a high-performing environment. I mean, I guarantee that if you go to it's the Mexican Grand Prix this coming weekend. Even if Mercedes win it, I guarantee there will be a list of 20 or 30 things that went wrong, and what they will be doing, you know, straight after the race, the drivers and the people at the circuit will be spending 2-3+ hours after the race, actually going through what went wrong, what went right. The following day, back at the factory in the UK, there will be an all-hands meeting with everyone in the team. And when I say everyone, everyone is invited, and there will be a very candid review of what went on, what went wrong, what went right, because you need that shortcut in terms of communication in order to be able to react quickly enough. So in a Formula One environment, you'll race on the Sunday, you'll have the debrief on the Monday. You know, if there are problems, you'll probably have to have a solution in place by Thursday. You'll have to make the parts over the following weekend, and then they'll have to go to wherever they've got to go in the world, probably on the Monday or the Tuesday, in order to be ready to start again on the following Thursday. So, you know, I've never worked in the armed forces, but it's a it's a team environment where you're either in the team or you're not in the team. So there are very, very few, if any, secrets within a team. You know, it is assumed that the confidentiality, you know, is there, and everyone is going to play the game, and everyone is going to, put the team first. So that open communication is, and very quick communication, which shortcuts any bureaucracy, is very, very important. Focusing on what gives results. I mean, there are thousands of parts in a Formula One car. There are lots of things that you can do. You know, there's lots of interesting things you can do. You know, you can work on all sorts of lovely engineering projects, but at the end of the day, there's three areas which drive performance, which is aerodynamics, performance of the engine, and how you use the tyres. All the cars have got the same tyres, but how you actually use those tyres to best advantage. And I think the message I want to take out of this slide is that don't get diverted by all the interesting things which are lovely to work on, but actually don't drive the performance of the team. And in Formula One, it's very easy to go off into the boonies, worrying about front toe stiffness or various engineering esoteric things which do bring performance, and you do need to worry about them a little bit, but keeping your eye on the ball. Innovation. Good ideas come from absolutely anywhere, and if I come back to the start of my talk, the so-called double diffuser, which I spoke about, I was there when a very junior Japanese engineer, when we were talking about this potential, the aerodynamics of the following year's car, put up his hand and said, well, I've got this idea. And instantly most people thought he was talking about something which was not within the rules. And I still to this day believe that the reason he had the idea was that he was reading the rules of the sport literally, because he was English, it was his second language. Most of the rest of us were reading the rules as in we were overlaying it with the spirit of the rules. And this young guy had this idea, and within a few seconds everyone realised that it was gold dust, and he'd observed something. Now I believe to this day that if we didn't have that environment where it was very open, that everyone felt confident to introduce ideas, possibly we would never have got that idea, and we wouldn't have won the World Championship. So I just think it's a good example of a good idea can come from anywhere. If you observe a great engineer like Ross Brawn in a team meeting with all his engineers, it's very interesting. He will say very little. He will make sure that everyone has their say, and invariably, engineering has a right solution most of the time. But if the meeting doesn't come to a conclusion, he will make a decision on the team's behalf, but he's not dictating to the team. He's actually trying to get all the good ideas on the table. And as I say, this car, which won in 2009, which was really the start of this trail of success for the team that is now Mercedes, really only had one great idea, as I say, but it had excellent execution. The Williams team and the Toyota team also had the same idea, but didn't make it work anything like as well. Data acquisition, there are about 15,000 channels of data coming off a Formula One car. That is going up exponentially. I mean, if you go back to when I was a lad, you had some, that was a long time ago. Thank you for that laugh. Most of you weren't alive when I was a lad. But literally you had a stopwatch and you had a clipboard and you wrote down a lap time. I mean, that was about the only data you had. You didn't have corner times, and it's now evolving at enormous rates. I mean, at the moment you might have 15, 20,000 channels of data. I think that'll get to 1 million plus, very shortly. And the tools you need to analyse that are very important, and the agility of decision making. One of the things that the Mercedes team, especially, possibly a number of the others, have invested in very, very heavily are strategic tools which guide during the race what you should do. And in fact, the chap who was instrumental in developing a lot of this actually came as a brilliant mathematician, came from graphic design. He and his sister worked on the George Lucas Star Wars early movies, and he's someone I bumped into, and he's still working within Formula One. But it's presenting the right information in the right way at the right moment. So what engineers will be looking at on the pit wall is very different data sets during the race depending on what's going on. And they'll be fed huge amounts of pertinent information, because if you've got to make a decision in a couple of seconds, then you can't be sitting there looking through dozens of spreadsheets. You've got to be presented with the right stuff at the right moment. And the decisions are so knife edge that you can look like an idiot or a hero very easily. And the person who's the chief strategist in the case of Mercedes, a very clever young guy called James Vowles, sometimes he looks like an absolute hero, but unfortunately occasionally he doesn't look too good. But the complexity of the decisions and the amount of information that they're trying to sift through to decide what to do means that it's something they get right most of the time. So in summary, that's my wife, by the way. It's not just so I'm mistaking the picture. Celebration of success, I think, very important. I mean, one of the things that Formula One teams, I know that when times are hard, companies have a tendency to cut back stuff at the margins. I would say that Formula One teams are very good at having a good party at the end of the season and during the season to celebrate and that's not just for the employees, that's for every family member who is associated with it, with the kids, because that's when everyone comes together and actually celebrates the amount of effort they put into it. But there are no special processes in Formula One. It works very quickly. It's the same design tools that you might find at Airbus or another big company. It's just made to work very, very quickly. Finally, I have written a book about this. Why should you buy it? Well, I think it's a very good read. Some of you are holding it here. A guy called Ed Gorman, who works for the Times, has done most of the actual writing, and he's a great writer. So it's quite racy. Any money I receive from the book will go to a couple of charities. A charity called Hope for Tomorrow, which provides mobile cancer units, a dementia charity, and another charity called the Halo Project for kids with disabilities, to get them self-sustaining and have their own lives. So, it's a great book for Christmas. So, and it's not just about Formula One. A lot of it is about the business aspects. It's about working with Bernie Ecclestone. It's about working with Michael Schumacher. It's about the business processes. So, if Uncle Fred or Aunt Matilda needs a Christmas present, this is the place to go. Buy yours now. Survive, Drive, Win. There it is. And thank you very much indeed.
So I guess there's two questions that come to mind. The first is when you took on that liability, what was the upside you saw in terms of financial? I mean, you're taking on a big cost base. And the second question, I guess, is a similar theme, that when Mercedes take it on and they've got an operating cost of 500 mil, what's the upside financially for them?
I think the Mercedes arguments would be a lot more logical than our arguments. I mean, the only thing really I miss from Formula One is the teamwork. And when you're part of a team and you're in trouble, then you do your best to get out of that trouble. And I don't think we were thinking this way at the time, but we had 700 employees, we had 700 families. It was the middle of the recession, and we thought we'd give it a go. And in our view, what we actually did, we had a bit of money. Honda did give us a legacy, if you like, and we worked out that if we went bust at the end of the following year, how much money would we need to pay off everybody to the same extent as we got, as if they'd been made redundant the year before. So we kind of ring-fenced the payoff, if you like, and then the rest of the money we had became the budget. So I guess we just thought we'd give it a go, and we came up trumps, and we never ever had any reason to believe. We thought we'd done a good job, but we had no aspiration of winning the World Championship. I mean, I think it was far more likely that we were going to go bust at the end of the following year and probably be very mid-range. And I think this is the Leicester City story, but it's probably even more incredible than Leicester City because the amounts of money and the amounts of technology. Why would any big company want to be involved in Formula One, Mercedes or otherwise? Is because it's one of the very few truly global sports. I mean, I know that the World Cups and the Olympics happen every 4 years or whatever, but the beauty of Formula One is that it's visiting physically 20 places around the world. So if you're a sponsor or if you're a team owner, you can bring to life your product and your investment around the world. If you sponsor the Premiership, clearly most of the games are here in England. If you're a truly global company and you get involved in something like Formula One, then actually, you actually can bring it to life on a global basis. Specifically about Mercedes, they are among the best engineers in the world, and arguably Formula One is an incarnation of the highest engineering skill. So if they're beating, Ferrari, you're saying to your customers, we are the best. And I have to say, having seen the facilities at somewhere like Stuttgart, which is where Mercedes are based, they invest, as I've said here, incredibly heavily, and so it's a huge marketing benefit. There's also some small engineering spin-offs. I would argue that a little bit about hybrid and battery technology, etc. It helps if you're doing something as high tech as Formula One.
You kind of spoke to your kind of career progression over that time as well, and how you've moved around lots of different roles. How did you go about making those decisions to effectively change what you were doing so frequently, and how did you approach new roles and making sure that you kind of got up to speed quickly? Are there any kind of tips that you'd have on that?
I mean, I do have the talent, I have to say, for picking things up pretty quickly. I mean, I'm not a person who may be a detail expert, but I can pick up what you need to know. So I think having that sort of open mindset, I think, listening to people, helps, because you pick up, instead of transmitting how great you are, listening to other people and picking up as much as possible. So I think that's a skill which I do have. I've always believed, and I can't tell you why I've always believed this, but from a very early age, after uni, I believed that in order to do a good job, you needed to understand how it all went together. So I was always interested in the bigger picture, and then working out, well, my little bits, how could that contribute towards the bigger picture? And I'm always fascinated by new things. So, I will not stand here and claim I was any good at making cars. I ran a manufacturing plant. I would say I was pretty poor at it. But I gave it a go, and I learned one hell of a lot, and there were a lot of people around me, and because I worked in other functions, I could then sort of tie together, how do I help the marketing guys by what we're doing in the manufacturing plant, and vice versa. So I was always able to, cross-fertilize is probably the best way. I mean, I didn't have any great strategic plan, I have to say. I mean, I'm just sort of an inquisitive type of person, and I'm always eager to learn more, and I guess take a risk. I mean, logically, moving from Ford to a small engineering company wasn't the best career move, but I guess you don't get to owning a Formula One team if you just do the thing that's safe and the thing that is predictable, because everyone does the safe and predictable. So, I try and encourage my kids, if everyone else is going right, then have a look at going left, because left might be the right answer. Just because everyone's gone that way doesn't mean that. So, I can't give you a blueprint for it, but maybe there's a few thoughts there.
Thanks.
Ma'am.
Do you think that Formula One has become too complicated in terms of sort of data technology, the inputs, or do you think that these companies have sort of a great benefit or a duty to get to grips with them, and then looking at the wider application? So I'm thinking, for example, of Williams using wing technology to improve supermarket refrigerator cooling, applying those benefits to sort of wider society.
I think that there are spin-offs, and Williams is a very good example. Ironically, they're not very good at Formula One at the moment, but their engineering division is incredibly successful. So they are successfully, but the core reason for a Formula One team to exist is to win Formula One races. Do I think that this technology and the cost of the technology is a good investment for mankind, if you take it broadly? No, I don't. I think it's got completely out of hand. And the fact that 3 teams have won every race for the last 5 years is boringly predictable. And Formula One certainly has some significant structural problems. Most of the money goes to the top teams. The teams below the top 3 get very little. At the end of the day, a good big 'un is always going to beat a good little 'un. That's not to say a big company. Toyota were in Formula One for a while. BMW were in Formula One, and they never really were very successful despite huge dollops of money. So it's difficult to say money is the root of everything and is going to bring you success. But if you deploy that money well, you are going to be successful. I think the Formula One has got to decide on a direction. Clearly, cars are going, electric. Formula E, which is the electric, motorsport, is getting more and more successful. For my money, Formula One has got to be a lot more entertaining, and certainly being involved in esports with Fnatic. You could see that it's got to be perpetually entertaining. An hour and a half's race, where something might happen at the start, something might happen in the middle, but then not much else. These days, for people's fast-moving lives, is not going to be successful. So I think they've got some difficult decisions to make with distribution of income and what actually is this sport, because although there are spin-offs, you would never ever spend this much money to get the relatively small spin-offs that it provides.
I'm trying to think about how to make the sport more accessible, and you mentioned esports. If you were to predict the role that esports will play in the future, where do you think it's going to take this sport? And Google's about to launch a major gaming platform in less than a month as well, so I guess Google has an interest in it as well.
Yeah, I think that I think it would be great if actually I think you've got to do a couple of things in combination. I think that Formula One races need to be made probably a lot shorter, a lot more punchy in terms of short games, just like in esports. But I guess it would be fantastic if actually you could race real time against the real drivers that were racing. And at the moment, car race games are, relatively speaking, I think there's about 1 million people worldwide who play, a car race game, or all the car race games. So it's, and the problem with the car race games at the moment is that it's a perfect replica of the real thing. And if the real thing's boring, a replica of it is invariably not going to be any different. So I think that you've got to make the real thing much more entertaining, and being able to race the real people real time. And I think the other thing which I think people make a mistake is that replication of the real thing. The reason that esports are incredibly entertaining is that it's not the real world. I mean, if you play a game like League of Legends or Fortnite or whatever it happens to be, it's fantasy. And I think, you know, trying to make games a replica, whatever they might be, of the real thing is probably missing the point completely. And I think you've got to keep your eye on the entertainment side, and how do you combine, you know, entertainment and make it, you know, just really quick fire. I don't think people have got time to watch, you know. I think even a 90-minute football match with 2:45s is hard going. So I think actually making it much more fun. Thank you very much.